My name is Susan Flood, and I was sitting at my kitchen table scrolling through my phone when I first realized just how invisible I'd been to my own family. You see, my sister's wedding was supposed to be a celebration, but it turned into a reminder that in my parents' eyes, I wasn't even worth a seat at the table, financially or emotionally. They had handed Amanda, my sister, the entire wedding fund, tens of thousands of dollars, and for me, nothing. Just nothing. No warning, no explanation, no note, nothing at all. And what made it worse was the smug way my parents presented it, as if I should somehow feel grateful for being completely overlooked. I'll never forget that moment. I sat there, staring at the blank envelope in my hand, feeling like the world had shrunk down to just that table, that room, that moment when I was nothing more than a footnote in my own family story. I want you to feel exactly what it was like, because if you've ever been pushed aside, ignored, or treated as though you don't matter, this will hit home. That day, my heart wasn't just broken, it was fueled. And what happened next? Well, they had no idea what they'd unleashed. They didn't know about the trust. They didn't know that every assumption they'd made about me being powerless was about to be shattered. The wedding itself was a blur of crystal chandeliers, soft music, and laughter that seemed to echo from a world I wasn't part of. I was seated at the very last table in the far corner, almost hidden behind a decorative column, with a view of the bride that made me feel like I was watching a movie I wasn't allowed to star in. Amanda looked radiant, glowing in a gown that seemed custom-made just for her, and she smiled at everyone. But I caught it, a little tilt of superiority, a quiet satisfaction that screamed, I am the favorite. And then came the moment that cut me deeper than any dress, any song, any toast. Amanda, with her champagne flute raised, thanked my parents for the $50,000 gift that had made this day possible. And all I had in my hand was a check for, well, let's just say it wasn't enough to even make a dent in the cost of a decent dinner. My mother leaned in, her voice icy. That's all you deserve, Susan. Be grateful we included you. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just held that envelope so tightly my fingers hurt, the paper crinkling beneath my nails. But inside, something else was beginning to stir. A slow, burning clarity. I realized, sitting there, that they had made a mistake, one that they would regret. Later, when Amanda twirled across the dance floor to applause, I quietly slipped out with my fiancé, Marcus. We said it was a family emergency. It was, in a way. The emergency was my own sense of dignity being trampled for the last time. And as we drove away, the glow of the ballroom lights fading behind us, I finally felt free. Free from the expectations, the manipulations, and the favoritism that had defined every moment of my life in that house. The next morning, Marcus and I woke up in our tiny apartment. No chandeliers, no gilded walls, no $50,000 wedding fund waiting for us. Just us, two mismatched mugs of coffee, and the quiet hum of a city that didn't know my name. And for the first time in years, I felt like I had a blank slate. No one's approval needed, no one's rules applied. I unpacked our meager belongings, and Marcus poured me a cup of tea, his fingers brushing mine. It's just us now, he said softly. And that was true. Just us. I didn't have a pile of money from my parents to build a dream life, but I had something far more powerful, control. I had choice. And with that choice came opportunity. I started small. I set up a custodial trust for my niece, the daughter Amanda had announced she wanted after the wedding, but I added conditions they could never touch. Every penny for education, for her future. Not a dime could be used for frivolous expenses, not a single withdrawal without strict compliance. My parents had thought they could control me with money, with favoritism. But the trust was my statement. I could play their game, and I could win it on my own terms. Word got out in subtle ways. A friend noticed the foundation for my niece's future, and whispers started circulating among distant relatives and family acquaintances. Suddenly, everyone who had ignored me at the wedding was paying attention, but I didn't make a scene. I didn't gloat. I just let the actions speak for themselves. And trust me, they did. Months passed, and my career took off in ways I'd only dreamed about. I launched my own marketing consultancy, handling small businesses that no one else wanted to touch. Each successful project was a quiet rebellion against the family that had tried to make me invisible. Marcus and I worked side by side, our small apartment becoming a hub of ideas, strategy, and endless coffee cups. We were building not just a life, but a legacy, and all the while, I kept my niece's trust intact, a secret shield against anyone who thought they could outmaneuver me. And then came the inevitable confrontation. Amanda, ever curious, ever entitled, finally asked about the trust. She thought she had leverage because she was the golden child, the one who had been given everything up front. She didn't realize that the trust was designed in such a way that her every attempt to access it legally would fail. Every question she asked, every attempt to manipulate was met with calm, quiet clarity from my lawyer. I had anticipated everything. I had expected everything. And I had won. The moment I realized the full scope of my victory was quiet. It wasn't a dramatic confrontation or a public spectacle. It was when I watched Amanda's frustration mount, her once smug confidence cracking in private messages I intercepted through the legal channels. And I smiled, not out of cruelty, but because for the first time the balance of power had shifted. They had underestimated me. They had assumed that because I wasn't given anything, I was powerless, and nothing could be further from the truth. My parents? They noticed the change too, though they never admitted it. Their calls became less frequent, their words more cautious. And I realized something important. Revenge isn't about shouting or humiliating or even proving them wrong. True revenge is quiet, strategic, and sustainable. True revenge is building a life so complete, so rooted, that no one else's opinions or favoritism could touch it. As the years went by, my niece benefited from the trust, never knowing the quiet battles fought on her behalf. Marcus and I expanded our business, adding new clients, new employees, new ventures. Every late night spent strategizing, every small victory in the marketplace was a step away from the shadow of favoritism and toward the light of self-determination. And each step reminded me that the power my parents had tried to withhold from me was never theirs to give. I also learned something else. Resilience isn't built in moments of comfort. It's forged in the fire of exclusion, betrayal, and silence. And that's exactly what I had been given. No check, no congratulations, no applause, just neglect. And I transformed it into a weapon, into a foundation, into a life that was untouchable. Looking back now, I understand that the wedding wasn't just a betrayal, it was a test. And I passed not because I sought approval, but because I refused to define myself by anyone else's narrow, biased measure. The trust, the business, the life Marcus and I built, they were all proof that I could create what was denied to me, that I could thrive without anyone's permission. There were moments of temptation, of course. Seeing Amanda flaunt her lavish wedding photos on social media, her lifestyle seemingly perfect while I was grinding for every penny. But I never reacted. I never posted anything. I never played into their narrative. Instead, I focused on my strategy, my work, my niece, and my future. Every post I made, every story I shared was authentic, intentional, and untouchable by the chaos of my family's favoritism. Eventually, even Amanda's bravado couldn't mask the cracks. The lavish lifestyle funded by my parents started to crumble as she faced real-world responsibilities, bills, and decisions she wasn't prepared for. And I watched quietly as the consequences of entitlement met reality. Meanwhile, I kept building, quietly, steadily, unapologetically. The ultimate payoff wasn't a dramatic showdown. It was seeing my niece grow up with the resources and opportunities I had fought for. It was seeing Marcus and I create a life that no one could manipulate or diminish. It was the knowledge that I had turned betrayal into power, exclusion into strategy, and favoritism into fuel. And I want you to hear this. If anyone watching has ever been made to feel small, unwanted, or overlooked, there is a way forward. Not through revenge in the traditional sense, not through confrontation, not through drama. True power comes from planning, strategy, patience, and unwavering self respect. It comes from creating structures, like a trust or a business, that protect what's yours and ensure that no one else can take it away. When I sit in my office now, looking at the skyline of the city that once seemed too big, too impersonal, I feel a quiet pride. Not pride in money or recognition or revenge, but in resilience. In knowing that the pain they tried to impose on me became the foundation for a life no one else could touch. The envelope my mother handed me at that wedding, I still have it, not for nostalgia, not for bitterness, but as a reminder that the most powerful victories often come from the moments when you were told you had nothing. So, to anyone out there who has been denied, overlooked, or treated as invisible, you are not powerless. Your strength is not determined by what others give you.